You're listening to That Lab Chick, your insider guide to CLIA compliance. No overwhelm, just answers. I'm Amy, a former CLIA surveyor turned compliance consultant, and this is the show where I make sense of the regulations nobody has time to fully read. Let's get into it. As one of my favorite authors, H.P. Lovecraft, said, the oldest and strongest fear is the fear of the unknown. Let me help you get past that fear for CLIA inspections with insights from my 7 years as a CLIA surveyor. Welcome to That Lab Chick. I'm Amy, a former CLIA surveyor turned independent technical consultant, and this is your insider guide to CLIA compliance. Practical answers in simple language with no overwhelm. Today, we're going to walk through a typical routine CLIA inspection so you know what's coming. All right, so to get started, first thing you need to know is that typically routine CLIA inspections are announced. So you're going to get a phone call from your surveyor about a week or two prior to the date they plan on being there. Now, this is also the time when they're going to send you all of the forms that you need to complete, and we'll probably have to cover those in another episode because they are a bit daunting. But at this time, when they call and say, hey, I'm going to be there next Wednesday at 9 o'clock, if you have a conflict, I'm not talking you're just scared because they're coming or you're hoping to quickly try to get something done because that never works. I'm talking you have a once in a lifetime trip to Italy booked, right? Tell them. Tell them, ask, hey, can we do it this week? Can we do it a week prior? Can we do it a week later? I have this trip. I'm going to Italy. I already have my plane tickets booked. The surveyors are human. They're going to understand that. People have vacations. So just talk to them. Now, along that same lines, I want you to also remember that we are all on the same team. We're all here about giving the best patient care we possibly can. So, the same way that your techs look and review everything on a day to day basis, and your leads and supervisors are going to look kind of more at that weekly type of thing. And then, you're going to have your lab directors looking more at months or quarters. This is just another set of eyes coming to look at 2 years worth of data, right? They're just here to make sure that you are giving the correct lab results. Sit, making sure patient care is taken care of, right? Okay. So, along those same lines, also remember the surveyors are human. There is no need to get your stomach in knots. I had, I remember when I was a surveyor being told that someone hadn't slept since the day I called them because they were so concerned about it. Now I understand. We all want to be doing right. We all want the A plus grade. I understand, but don't get your stomach in knots over this. It's just another set of eyes. If they find anything, all that's going to do is give you a way to improve your lab and to improve your laboratory results, right? Okay. So just remember, no stomach in. I actually still have currently a lab manager who I don't tell that CLIA is coming until about 2 or 3 days before they're gonna be there. I mean, I make sure her schedule's okay and all of that, just because I know she will not eat for the whole time because her stomach will be in total knots. Alright, so we know what day they're coming, and we have all of these forms that we have filled out and gotten signed. Okay, so the day of the inspection. When the surveyor comes in, they're gonna have a brief meeting with whoever it is the lab deans needs to be in the know, right? So this can be the lab director if they're on site. the lab manager, any leads, anyone else. Basically, they're going to come in, they're going to go over what the day's going to look like. At this point, if it's a multiple day inspection, let them know if one of your section supervisors is going to be off on a certain day so they can kind of make sure to look at their section at a day when they're actually there, right? Just a little side note. So now at this point, they're going to go through all the forms, all the documentation, see if anything has changed since the last time they were there, new instruments, new testing. They'll ask you if you have any questions. If you do, ask, 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 ask. Surveyors are happy to help. They want you to be doing the right thing 100%. Okay, so one of the little tips and tricks I'm gonna give you, though, is make sure everything is organized and available, right? Organization, I cannot tell you how many times I walked into a laboratory and right off the bat, I thought, "Oh, this is gonna not turn out well," just simply because of the organization of just the forms they handed me, right? So that is kind of this entrance conference is going to be their first view of how your lab operates. If you're in utter chaos with the forms, they're going to assume your laboratory is in utter chaos. So keep that in mind. Now, usually during this entrance or right after this entrance interview or, conference, really, not so much an interview, they're gonna ask you to walk them through the laboratory, right? They just wanna walk through, see what instrumentation you're using, take some notes, maybe look and see what lots of QC you're currently using, what lots of calibrator you're currently using. This is all to make the next step of looking at paperwork a little bit easier. So now, when they start the record review, typically, and as I was trained, you're going to start with the 3 P's, right? Personnel, policy and procedure, proficiency testing. Not necessarily in that order, but those are going to be the first 3 things. So I can tell you that without fail, that's going to be what they're looking at. So make sure those are available, ready, organized, especially your personnel records, right? Sometimes we have lots of personnel, things can get a little crazy, but make sure they're organized. Simple, easy to follow formats that have everything that the inspectors need, right? Okay, so those 3 things are going to truly be the beginning of this inspection, right? So we're talking about personnel, gonna make sure that everybody has their education, that they have their competencies, that have training records, that everyone is qualified for the positions that you have listed them in on the forms, right? Okay. So now I know that I have personnel that are qualified. That's important, right? So then I'm going to look at proficiency testing. Okay. So as I'm going through your proficiency testing, this is going to show me if you've had any failures, if you have any problems with your actual testing, right? That's what proficiency testing is for. We're going to see how you corrected those, what you did to keep that from happening again. All very important parts, right? Okay, then we're going to move on to policy and procedure manual. We're going to see what your policies actually are, what they say. Then later, we're going to evaluate, are they following that? Are they doing something different? Got to make sure that what you're actually doing is what is actually written, right? Very simple. It's got to match. So, this is kind of where we get into personnel interviews. Now, usually the interviews are not going to be formal interviews where they pull people in and they sit down and quiz them. So, don't worry about that. What's actually gonna happen is they're gonna see something in a policy or they're gonna see something on a piece of paper, right? because after they get through with the 3 Ps, they're gonna ask you for 3 to 4 months, they're gonna be random months, of QC records, of maintenance records, of temperature records, right? So they're going to want to see what you have been doing, right? To see if your process on paper matches what your policy says, your procedure says, right? So now, as they're looking at this, if they have some questions, if something's not jiving, or sometimes you just think, as a surveyor, you think, I think that maybe I'm not getting the full picture here. So I'm going to go ask somebody, right? Simple way to ask. So you're going to go out into the lab or to ask you as a manager or a lead, hey, I read this in here. Can you show me how this works? Right? Run me through it. Show me. Now, if they come out and ask a question, I want you to make sure that your entire staff knows that I'm not sure is an acceptable answer if it is followed by what they would do in real life, right? So let's just say, as a surveyor, I come out and go, hey, what QC do you use with this procedure? When you're put on the spot, sometimes you do not remember anything. We totally understand that. You can always say, I'm not sure. Let me check, right? So now you're going to go check your procedure manual. Totally acceptable. You're not expected to have your entire procedures all memorized. It's totally acceptable. Um, I'm not sure. I would normally ask my supervisor, manager, director, whoever, and they would help support me in how to get that done, right? All totally and completely acceptable. Things like quarterly maintenance. I have no clue how to do quarterly maintenance if you just ask me. Every time I'm going to pull out my procedure book or I'm going to pull out the operator's manual. So when you're asked those questions, know that I'm not sure I would is a completely acceptable answer. Don't start making things up. Um, I have seen at an inspection, I ask, what type of sample do you use for this HCG kit? Person grabbed it, looked at it, said, well, it says that I can use urine or serum. Mm. But their policy didn't say anything about serum because serum on an HCG makes it moderate complexity, which requires different things than just urine. So technically, they set themselves up to be written up for performing a moderate complexity test without the setup or the QC that would be required for it. So always keep that in mind. So now I've been through all of the 3 Ps. I've been through the QC. I've been through the maintenance. I've got all of this done. Now I'm going to go out to the lab and do what I like to call the snoop. This Snoop is I'm gonna come out, I'm gonna open up every drawer, every cabinet, every refrigerator, every freezer. I'm gonna look for anything that's out of sorts. I'm gonna look for anything that's expired. I'm gonna look for anything that doesn't have an open date on it, right? These are all the things I'm going to be looking for. Now, one of the funny ones when I was a surveyor was I literally opened a deep freeze, a -20 that had, all kinds of Bio-Rad QC stored in it, and there was a gallon of ice cream sitting in there. They explained to me that, "Oh, it was so and so's birthday yesterday, and we had a party, and the freezer in the break room was full, and we couldn't fit this in there." Not acceptable, right? We all know that's not acceptable. Another place, that morning, I had gone through everything and seen there was nothing in the fridge except what was supposed to be in the fridge. That afternoon, when I did my snoop, though, there was a week's worth of groceries shoved into one of the refrigerators. And they, of course, explained, well, I had to run and get groceries for the week over lunch, and I always come in and just stick them in this fridge. We all know, not acceptable, right? I don't want that in there. I surely wouldn't want my groceries in with blood samples and urine samples. Ugh. Um, one of the other ones that got me, oh my gosh, so I was a baby surveyor, right? I was out with my mentor, she's training me. She opens the freezer on just a regular refrigerator freezer. I can't see because I'm behind the door. Her eyes got as big as saucers, right? And she shut the door and just looked at me. So I came around, I opened it. Oh my gosh, there was fresh frozen plasma stored in this frost-free freezer. So keep in mind, frost-free means that it's going to thaw, have a thaw cycle, and then freeze again. And here is fresh frozen plasma. No temperature monitoring, continuous temperature monitoring, nothing on it. It was absolutely insane. I never knew until that point that that was even a possibility out there at all. All right. So we've done all of this, we've done all the Snoop. Now we're going to do the exit conference. So again, for the exit conference, you can have whoever in there that you want. I know some of the larger hospitals will have CEOs and COOs and all of that in the room. Some of the smaller doctors' offices, you may just have just the lab manager, sometimes the director. So in this exit, we're going to go through, we're going to discuss all of the things that were found, anything that we're going to write up, what tags those are going to be under, any suggestions we may have. Now, at this point, if there is some documentation that maybe they didn't see, you can produce that. But if you have any questions about anything, this is the point at which you ask. Make it a conversation. They are always happy to answer questions because, again, we're all on the same side. Okay, so we've had the exit, you know, all the stuff you're going to get. At this point, what's going to happen is that surveyor's going to go back to the office or back to the hotel room and write all of this up. They're going to put it on this pretty little sheet that looks pretty confusing. And in about a week to 10 days, they're going to send this to you. Now, in the modern age, a lot are being emailed. Some are still being mailed in the old snail mail. They should tell you which way it's going to come in the exit. So at this point, you are going to get a 2567 is what it's called. And it's going to come with a letter. Sometimes it's scary, sometimes it's not. It's all very a little bit overwhelming. You are then going to write your response to this and get that sent back to them, right? Depending on what level of deficiencies you have. And we'll cover that in another episode because that's a lot of info. Um, so basically, that's it. That's the survey process. Nothing too scary, nothing to be overwhelmed about. These are all things that you do on a daily basis. You're all going to be on the same page. Remember that surveys are routine. Anybody with a CLIA certificate, well, moderate and above, cover that in another episode, um, will have an inspection, right? They're just coming in to make sure that we're all doing what we need to be doing to give the best patient care. Remember that organization from the minute they walk in the door is going to be very important. It's going to set the tone for the entire survey. And remember that the exit conference is your best opportunity to ask all the questions. Use it. All right, so that's all for today. If you have any questions, you can find me at that lab chick on any of your socials and also at thatlabchick.com. Please stop by, take a little time to send me a note. Let me know how you liked the episode. I'm always happy to hear. Um, so the other thing is if you're interested on the website, you can sign up to get the top 10 CLIA deficiencies. So something I put together so you can at least know what you're looking for and what's going on. And coming soon, we are going to have an app that is going to allow you to ask CLIA regulatory questions and it give you answers in plain text to help you out. If you want to get on that waiting list and get that discount for the first ones to be signed up, again, it's thatlabchick.com. I'll see you on the next episode. Thanks for listening to That Lab Chick. If this episode was helpful, please visit the website at thatlabchick.com and grab my free top 10 CLIA deficiencies checklist. I'll see you next time.